edition of Naharjeeto Bookathon, presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. Today, we have privilege of diving into the remarkable insights, the book Listening for Well-Being by Arun Maira. Arun's insights provide a unique perspective on collaborative solution to address humanity's greatest challenges. Ratan Tata walls have risen between nations and people of different faiths and culture. There is increasing violence against people whom we do not approve, physical in the real world and verbal online. We are unwilling to give people the dignity that they deserve, what they are different. We are losing our ability to listen to people who are not like us, even within the boundaries of a nation. The idea of democracy is in peril. Meanwhile, global problems, climate change, depletion of shared resources, persistent poverty, and increasing inequalities cry out for more urgent solution. Listening is a simple idea. Everyone, rich or poor, powerful or weak, educated or uneducated, can listen to each other. In Listening for Well-Being, Arun Maira shows us ways to use power of listening. He analyzes the causes for decline in listening and proposes a solution to increase its depth in private and public discourse. Drawing from this extension experience as a leading strategic, Maira emphasizes that by listening deeply, especially to people who are not like us, we can create a more inclusive, just, harmonious, and sustainable world for everyone. We are honored to have Arun Maira. He is the chairman of Help Engine International and chancellor of the Central University of Himachal Pradesh, a member of India's Planning Commission from 2009 to 2014. He had worked for 25 years in Tata Group at top-level position and was a chairman of the Boston Consulting Group in India. Maira is the author of best-selling books, Redesigning the Airplane While Flying, Reforming Institutions and an Upstart in Government, Journeys of Change and Listening. This session will be moderated by Dr. Ashutosh Arvind Patarkar, Dean at GH Raisoni Skill Tech University, Nagpur, is a distinguished academic and author via PhD from Nagpur University with over 2 decades of experience in the pharmaceutical industry and 18 years in academics. He expertise in strategic and marketing management. He supervises doctoral students and conducts training programs globally. I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Ashutosh Arvind Patarkar.
Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first edition of Naharjeeto Bookathon, presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. And personally, it is a big honor and privilege for me to be interacting with Sri Arun Maira, sir. Sir, many thanks for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure. I'm very pleased to be talking with you. Thank you for inviting me. I thank the organizers for putting us together.
Yes, sir. I'm thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to Help Engine International and Chancellor of the Central University of Himachal Pradesh, member of India's Planning Commission from 2014, and he had worked for 25 years in the Tata Group at top-level positions and was the chairman of the Boston Consulting Group in India. Sir is the author of many best-selling books, to name a couple of them. An upstart in government journey with challenge. In this session, book Listening for Well-Being, and I quote Sri Ratan Tata, Arun's insights provide a unique perspective on collaborative solution to humanity's greatest challenge. Quote coming from Sri Ratan Tata. So, simple idea. Everyone, rich or poor, or being educated or uneducated, and listen to each other. And in listening for well-being, sir shows us ways to use of listening. He analyzes the causes of listening and proposes solutions to increase depth in private and business. Drawing from his extensive experience as a leading strategist, sir emphasizes that by listening deeply, especially to the people who are not like us, we can create a more inclusive, just, harmonious, and sustainable world for everyone. So by listening deeply to others, not only will we understand others better, but we can understand ourselves as well. Sir, one of the points that you have brought up in the book is regarding the demographic dividend. For these persons to contribute to the demographic dividend, they must be employed and earn income. Otherwise, by their underemployment and their inability to acquire consumer goodies that were becoming available to the Indian citizens with the opening of the economy and to which they aspired, their dissatisfaction could lead to demographic disaster instead of demographic dividend. And indeed, the signals of the impending disasters were appearing in various parts of the country, with unemployed youth participating in the political protest movements, some turning violent, etc. So, sir, are somewhere we are losing the opportunity to leverage demographic dividend?
Well, thank you, Ashutoshun. I'm very impressed and intrigued that you have connected the need for listening to people not like us, which is the main theme of my book, with the demographic dividend. And here's the connection I'm seeing. Maybe that's the same connection that you had in your mind. The demographic dividend is a concept used by economists. What they're saying is that the large number of young people that we have in the economy is a resource, which, if well used, we would be able to grow the economy and grow it faster. Right? So in economics, it is always the right concept that if you have something and you have a lot of that thing, you should use it smartly and wisely so that you can increase your economic benefits. Okay, so we have all over the world, amongst countries, broadly speaking, three types of resources. One of them is the non-renewable resources like fossil fuels and minerals. And countries would have a lot of fossil fuels, like Saudi Arabia, for example, or other countries in the Middle East. They are concentrating their development, the economic progress, on the use of fossil fuels. And they develop technologies for better extraction of fossil fuels, better processing of fossil fuels, and so on. And similarly, countries like Chile, which has copper and minerals, same thing. Build your growth on the exploitation of your resources. And those are non-renewable resources. Then you have renewable resources. There are countries which have a lot of forests and trees and therefore timber, or land on which you can have plantations of palm oil or rubber or fisheries. These are resources for the economy, and they're renewable resources, unlike the fossil fuels. But they're renewable provided one, harvests them responsibly and ensures that they keep getting replanted, restocked like fisheries. So they're renewable resources. Non-renewable, renewable. Now there's a third category of resource which every country has, which is human resources. Now this resource is different to even renewable resources in that human beings can improve their own value, make themselves more useful if they are motivated to. A tree in the forest can't make itself more useful to other trees or to the forest or to human beings. It is just inherent in it to be what it is and to remain like what it is. So let's see them. Human resources, the youth that India has, abundant more than every other country has, is a resource that we should know how to and learn how to use wisely to grow our economy. Remembering the distinction that they're not just renewable, they can improve their own value if they're motivated to. So now I'm going to go to the corporate sector, right? And how, and I guess you're very familiar with writing a corporate account, a balance sheet and a profit and loss account. What we put onto the balance sheet are our assets and resources that we can use and over a period of time are our assets. Okay, so if a company in the petroleum sector has large reserves of petroleum resources, they are shown in the balance sheet of that company. Other resources like the buildings the company owns or the machinery the company owns, which also are not exhausted within a year are shown on the balance sheet. On the other side, in the profit and loss account, we account for not assets but resources which we consume, like the materials that are consumed during the production process or services that are used and that are paid for to produce the product. And the use of these consumable resources adds value to the assets that were on the balance sheet. Now, where do we put human beings in a corporate account? We put them only into the P&L account. We don't show human beings as assets of a corporation. And what corporations do is that they want to get the most out of, in the shortest period of time, out of all their resources, like squeezing the most out of the materials to get every useful bit out of the material out during the production process. And similarly, unfortunately, want to squeeze at the most they can out of a human being when they're paying the human being to do some work. So squeezing the human being to produce economic benefit for the corporation. Whereas, like I said, the human beings are not ordinary resources, they aren't even ordinary assets. They are assets which, if judiciously nurtured, if given the opportunity themselves as human beings to improve their own learning, their own capability, they will make themselves more productive and can indeed even improve the productivity of other resources of the corporation. This is the magic that the Japanese brought into production systems by this idea that human beings, if they are given the opportunity inside production lines, inside corporations, to look at the data of what's happening around themselves and in small groups improve the performance of their parts of the process, they would be improving the productivity of the machines that they are using, productivity of materials that are being used by those machines. The human beings can improve the productivity of everything around themselves, including their own productivity. Unfortunately, companies do not treat human beings as appreciating assets. And so when they ask governments to make it easy for companies to make profits, what do they say? They say, please don't insist that we have unions which will then, demand higher wages. Please don't insist that we should keep our employees for longer periods of time because we don't need them continuously after 1 year, perhaps. We should be able to hire and fire them. Okay? So treating them just as costs. Use them when we need them, discard them when we don't need them. You see this?
Yes.
And governments are going along with supporting this when we say we must help the investors to make profit, we must ease the doing of business. But we are making it much harder for people to live, because to live they need to earn more wages and they need to be able to increase their wages along with their own training and productivity, just to keep up with inflation. It's a different approach. So in fact, governments should be insisting that for the sake of the economy, employees should be retained by companies longer. Employers should invest in the training of their own employees.
Yes.
Help the employees to learn faster about the work that they are doing and become the best in the world at doing that, and thereby making their own companies world-class competitive and making the whole of India world-class competitive as the Japanese had become. So in policy frame, we should be talking much more about the ease of living of citizens rather than the ease of making money by businesses. And if citizens are able to earn more, save more, then they will spend more, can spend more. And if citizens start spending more, the market grows for businesses. So while
Yes.
companies subsidies or incentives to first invest, they may come, but after a while, they don't have a market for what they're producing, so they don't expand their productions. So thereby, the whole economy does not grow, and it becomes harder to attract more investments. This is the position India's come to.
Right.
Trying our hardest to attract more investments. We gave incentives to companies 2 years ago, firstly 3 years ago, by reducing the tax rates on companies. We are happily giving more subsidies to companies to come and, get large pieces of land, and then saying we'll ease the labor laws and environmental laws. Yes. We allow you to damage human beings and damage the environment so that you can make more money. But the more the human beings don't earn, the more their lives are damaged, the more the environment is damaged, the less sustainable is the economic growth. So you see the short-sighted.
If they are not employed at all, economy also will not have multiplier effect.
Yes.
So economic people also doing etc.
Right.
So that's very well. A lot of insight with respect to the demographic dividend and leveraging that as well. Very interesting. We have been asked to facilitate a meeting involving multiple groups, stakeholders, industry associations, and more. And many of them do not want to listen to the other group. For instance, after the flash floods that we considered the Confederation of Indian Industries asked to facilitate a meeting to discuss the improvement of cities' infrastructure. And about the other side, in the situation, so generically, how should the facilitator prepare for meeting?
Yes, I had this experience when I joined the Planning Commission. When I was in the Planning Commission, my portfolio, my trust, given to me by the Prime Minister was to grow Indian industry and to grow employment in Indian industry, because India is lagging China by quite a bit in terms of the scale and the depth of our manufacturing industry. And the manufacturing industry is one which can employ a lot of people who don't need to be, highly qualified engineers who can work at high-end software. But, I mean, factories have always been those places which have provided, work and incomes to people coming off farms, because similar work. You're using your hands and you're moving things around with your hands. So you can do it in a factory if you're trained how to do what is required in the factory. You don't require, too fancy engineering knowledge or skills to do that. So we are not growing. We haven't been growing our factory sector, our manufacturing sector the way China has, and China has become the factory to the world. And India has as large a population as China, and we need to be able to provide many more people, more jobs outside agriculture than we are doing. So manufacturing and simple manufacturing, not high-end, automated, robotized manufacturing. Simple manufacturing where lots of people can be employed and do work efficiently, like the Chinese have been doing, is what we needed to do. So in that, the question always comes up, and had been coming up in India, that the employers don't want to pay too high wages because they say we want to make our products competitive. Also, the employers are reluctant to comply with too many safety requirements and environmental requirements because they say that adds to the costs of production, quite apart from the fact that you've got to comply with so many rules and fill in so many forms. So that is the ease of doing business, and we were moving on that and trying to improve India's record in being climbing up the ladder of the countries in which it's easier to do business, and we are way down on it for good reason. That we have been rather overcautious and cautious in protecting our environment and protecting the lives of people. But we wanted to get the investment, so we said, okay, let's start easing the rules on employers for employment. The unions, of course, would say no, but we must ensure that workers who are working are paid fairly and that their safety is protected. They shouldn't lose their arms and legs in working hard without safety equipment, and because who's then going to look after them for the rest of their lives? How are they going to earn? So there's a human need on one side, and there is, if you will, the need of capital on the other, that the capital wants to produce a lot of profit for itself. So the unions and the managements were in jhagdas. Capitalism versus socialism, or capitalism versus communism. It becomes pretty ideological. So we said, let's get down and let's not talk ideology. Let's talk about the real needs of employers. You need what? You need willing human beings You need human beings who will be able to learn. So, what are the conditions that you should create for the sake of your own success? And then let's ask the unions, what is it the workers are looking for when they work in a factory? Okay, now I'm saying we know the answer
Right.
that workers are looking for the same things that an employer should provide for the sake of the employer's own sustainable growth, which is, like I said, opportunities to workers to learn and keep learning and keeping on increasing their wages while they are at work with the employer, and to work safely so that they, having learned, they're available all the time to the employer to work, not that they had an accident and they can't come to work anymore. That's a waste of the investment that the employer has made otherwise in their training. So there should be an alignment of interest, but because people start with the assumption that the other side is bad, the other side is wrong, employers are evil, they just exploit workers, and employers say, but the unions, they don't understand how difficult it is to create an enterprise and to compete. So I was invited, since I know industry quite well, and also while in industry I understood very well what is required by industry to provide to its own workers to make them, useful assets, productive assets, appreciating assets to improve the competitiveness of the company. I understood both sides from my previous experience, so they asked me to facilitate a meeting of employers, many meetings of employers with many unions, and so invariably when we would start, they'd sit on different sides. ये एम्प्लॉयर की साइड है और ये यूनियन की साइड है, एक facing each other off, and I'm sitting in the middle trying to now say, okay, well, you hear each other. Now naturally, to hear somebody, someone has to speak, so it wouldn't be hearing each other, it would both be speaking. They just not hear each other, both would be speaking and repeating the same points of view that they've given repeatedly over years. Any forum, they go and say the same things. The unions are coming in the way of the development of the country. They're just protecting the workers. The workers don't wish to work. The workers just want more money. Repeating the same slogan. And the union people saying the same thing, that these employers, they don't care for the workers. They only care for their profits. They don't even provide safety equipment to the workers, and so on and so forth. So I said, in this meeting at least, please don't repeat things that you have said outside. And I know that after leaving this meeting, you'll still say the same things. But at least in this meeting, please listen to the other side. Let the other side speak. And I'm requesting the other side to just speak from your heart about what you
Yes.
really care about. Don't talk about how bad the other people are. Just talk about yourself, what really matters to you, and what do you really care about. And it's all right if an employer says, I care about the profit of my enterprise. The employer should care about the profit of the enterprise, because if the enterprise is not profitable, the employer can't afford to hire more workers or to pay them better wages. Similarly, it's okay if the workers' representatives say to the employers, we care about the safety of the workers, we care that they're paid more. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So rather than talking about the bad things about the other side, just talk about what you care about and what you genuinely need. And then let's see how we can meet
Yes.
the both sides' needs, because both have to exist together. If workers are not productive and feel fairly treated, they are not going to enable the company to keep operating and to grow and be competitive. If employers are not growing their companies profitably, the workers are not going to get employment and not to say. So there is a win-win for both sides, provided you understand each other. So it comes down to understanding each other. And for understanding another person, you must listen to the other person, not talk to the other person. Because in talking to the person, you're saying what's on your mind.
Right.
Listening to understand what's on the other person's mind. So that is where, again, like the title of the book, listening to people not like us. We assume that workers are not like managers. We assume that union people are not like CII or employers. They're different sort of people with different ideologies. They're different sort of human beings. We're all the same human beings.
Yes, absolutely. And, that's precisely just as the many organs healthy for the body to be healthy. Institutions must function together for a democracy to be robust. And our ability to listen, as you pointed out, listen to the other side as well. Our ability to listen is guided by and intended by structures in our minds. Now, these structures have walls, doors, or the windows of a house that facilitate the lives and activities of the occupants of the house. So please throw some light on these structures in our mind and the meetings and conversations.
Yes, I must say you hit on something which is not understood to be very obvious. You see, any process, every process has a structure, and I'll tell you what the structure of a process is just now. And that process also takes place within a physical setting or a physical structure. And you're alluding to the physical setting and structure.
Right.
Like there's a room in which people sit to have a dialogue. Now, if we want people to
Right.
really listen to each other as equals, they must be sitting at the same level at least. So you can look each other in the eye and feel that I'm being considered equal to the other person. So, unfortunately, many of our public meetings, the more powerful people sit on a higher level on a stage, for example, and the people, others are sitting below them. एंड हम कह रहे हैं हम पॉलिटिशियन आए आपकी सुनने के लिए आए हैं परंतु हम ऊपर हैं आप हमारा सुन सकेंगे हम आपका कैसे सुनेंगे माइक भी हमारे पास है आपके पास माइक भी नहीं है तो दिस फिजिकल पार्ट about ensuring that people feel they have an equal opportunity to speak, that the other side is actually willing to listen and giving us the opportunity, an equal opportunity to speak. This has to be set up before you start the dialogue. And so, like in the union meetings, it was very clear, obviously, that they're going to sit as far as possible in a circle together. And I began to insist that you don't separate, that all the union guys on one side and all the employers sit amongst each other because we're all human
Yes.
beings now, right? You're going to speak like a human being and not going to speak like an employer's representative or you as a union representative, because once you say that, you're representing the other side and who's on my side. So again, the setting
Yes.
then induces people to start thinking outside the usual ways that they would think about themselves and think about the other side. One, equal level, intersperse. Don't be physically even dividing yourself into two sides. That's clear. Third is the more important thing, which is the fundamental thing. There is power present always. We never leave power outside the room. I say, don't bring your power into the room. You can't
Right.
leave it because that's me. So power comes into the room how? कि आप बड़े लोग हैं, so you come into the room and like Ashutosh, now thank you for allowing me to call you Ashutosh, and if I asked you to please call me Arun, you will say for good reason, and I respect it, and you should keep it like that. It is because थोड़ी इज्जत तो देनी चाहिए, but it shouldn't be that you have to keep calling me by honorifics because culturally you have to keep honoring my power and my position. Respect
Yes.
honi chahiye, and you must give me some respect. I'm older than you, but I don't have to keep insisting that you keep referring to me as Lord so and so. So this comes into the meeting also, where I do say that please be respectful, but don't go and आप बड़े लोग जी आए हैं, हम बड़े खुश हैं, and all. And many of them they start like that. So the person being talked to like that gets back into his power position. See, they also think I'm very important. And then the person speaks from that position. So I gently would start suggesting to people to remember to keep your power of your position outside this room. You're here as a human being, and if there's any power that you have in this discussion, it's because of your understanding of the common problem, and it's about the caring that you have. The power of caring, the power of love for finding a solution is the power you bring in, not the power of force, not the power of your wealth, not the power of your position. Just try and keep that outside, right? So this is the structures of the meeting.
Yes.
And then in the facilitation, like I'm already pointing out, you'll notice when, power creeps back or people unwittingly insult the other side, and then the person reacts to the perceived insult. I have to be sensitive as a facilitator to what is going on in the minds of people on the both sides, and stop someone from doing the wrong
Yes.
thing, to keep the discussion at that level that we are listening to each other and going to create a solution together.
Right. So this container of the meeting must pay attention to the settings until the discussion comes. I do remember one of the meetings you were sitting at a corner, by the center chair. Center chair, you are only the most powerful person. So that huge difference. And of course, I refer to it as the hardware and the softwares that has to pay attention to in setting up. The structures you call as a physical setting as a hardware, and obviously the software of the meeting, process of the dialogues and deliberations, which are the deeper listening, thereby improving the outcome of the conference as well as the meetings. It's very, very important insight for everybody who is facilitating a meeting. Sir, culture, as you rightly pointed out, culture has very broad and deep impact on our behavior. And what are your experiences? Globally, what are your experiences?
Yeah, see, Ashutosh, we all grow up as bodies, and the bodies are nurtured by food we eat and water we drink, and something external enables our bodies to get its abilities, its strength, and the limbs learn what to do as a body. Our minds also, they grow up with taking some food from the outside. The structures in the mind, the way we think about things, is formed by ideas that we get from the outside. They are ideas which are initially what we see our parents doing, what we see our neighbors doing, and so on. So they begin to, in the mind of the child, point out what is important to pay attention to and how one should respond to different things. So we create inside our minds patterns of thinking, and we tell us how to react to different things. Okay, like the child learns that if you see some big thing with a lot of hair on it and claws, it could be dangerous. It could be a bear, it could be some big animal. As soon as you see that, your reaction must be to avoid it or to fight it. Similarly, unfortunately, our children do learn that some people are not like us. Like could be between, unfortunately in the West it becomes so much that after 9/11, that anybody who had a beard and had his head covered in a turban is a dangerous guy. And Sikhs in America who have beards and they have turbans, in America they were getting shot because he's got a turban, he's wearing and got a beard, he must be Osama bin Laden's nephew or a follower or something, and go shoot him. In our country, further than that, we just learned that there are some people who are like Dalits, yes, and when they are near you, then you mustn't touch them, and if they touch you, they've done something very wrong, and don't ever let them eat with you. So these children grow up. So thereafter, by the name of a person, if the name of a person sounds like a Dalit name, in the child's mind, automatically this person couldn't be a competent person. This person is not as good as I am. So you see how culture means what's happening around me, what I observe happening around me, shapes the ideas in my mind. And it makes me, unfortunately, feel different to other people. It's okay. We all are different, and that's the beauty of it. We are different.
Yes.
That is why we can always have something interesting to know in life by inquiring into this person is different. Wow, I can learn something new. If I'm with same people, बड़ा boring हो जाता है. Yeah,
जी.
something different to learn, right? However, it's a
Yes.
judgment about a person is different, but is the person better than me or worse than me?
हाँ.
Those judgments about another person, about the quality of another person, is where we are wrong. All of us are equally worthy, but we are taught, unfortunately, instinctively, we develop this instinct that certain people are less worthy than we are. In the
हाँ.
United States, the blacks are continuing to struggle against this. They're not less
Yes.
worthy human beings, but because they look different, they're black and obviously different, they're so stigmatized, so stigmatized. So it's very subtle also. In India, Dalits don't look physically as different as Brahmins, but it's so
Yes.
obvious. We ensure that they shall dress differently so that our children can also know that they are not like us.
हाँ. हाँ. Right. Sir, we are no more living in a stable economy. Gone are the days when the economies were very stable, and you have developed multiple economic models post 1990 for Indian economy as well. So, is it time for us to look at the global economic models as well? Are the old models still relevant, or now they are actively misleading decision making? How do you look at the models now?
Economists are having a struggle, okay?
Sir.
Because economics is not able to give the good solutions to the problems the world is having. When the financial crisis took place, which was in the West, the financial crisis in 2008, all the economists on that side in the West, and all economists generally, the discipline of economics side, we need a new normal. I mean, the old normal can't carry on. The old normal is very unfair and it's very unstable. So we need to find a new normal economics, a new normal in economics. Unfortunately, nothing has changed. The same ideas of
Uh-huh.
economics are guiding policy, right? Which is not yet paying enough attention to inequality, not yet paying enough attention to human beings as living assets of societies, still treating them the employment problem that, if we can keep inflation down, yeah, cut the government budget, somehow the economy is going to, in some few years, generate more incomes for people. So this view of economics, that the stability of the money and the stability of the budget is the most important thing for the government to take care of, rather than the lives of people, the ability of people to earn enough to keep up with the costs of inflation around themselves. The objective is different. And economics has been pursuing the wrong objective in sharpening its tools. It is unfortunately focusing just on the economy and the measured money economy at that, and not on what matters to people, what really matters to people. So there is a call for rethinking economics to get it outside of its own trap, outside its own models. Basically, the model of the economy that developed in the 20th century was based on the principle of a system in general equilibrium. It said, a general equilibrium. And sometimes it said that system gets into an instability, but it rectifies itself. It rectifies itself. Some invisible hand will take care of whatever was the disturbance and restore the stability of the system. General economic equilibrium and an invisible hand which makes things work. This is the concept of a market. That let the market, the magic of the market work.
Right.
Somehow the market figures out what is to be done to rectify the position, and the market will take care of. The government should not intervene. If things are going badly, if people are not earning enough, right? Please don't have any government policies to help people to earn more. Just leave it to the market. Hmm? So the view of an economy as a machine is the wrong model to start with. What are other models of systems? The first one is a machine is a very complex system. So it's a model of a complex system which is designed like a machine with all levers in it, hmm, and designed by some smart designer who then knows where the levers in the economy are and tells the policymaker which lever to pull. This is, isn't it? This is how economists tell policymakers what to do to improve the economy in any country. So they think of themselves as engineers of a machine. The economist is an engineer of a machine. And so the government turns to this expert and says, tell me which lever should I pull to make the machine perform better. The second model is the model out of nature. Nature looks after itself. Nature adapts. The forest adapts. The rivers adapt. Everything in nature interacts with each other and all adapt together. So the nature is a more complex system than the economy and than any machine. But the nature is a complex adaptive system. It internally adapts itself. Now, economists may say, but that's what a market does. Market is also an adaptive system. So we are saying leave it to the to the economy. Then I say, in which case we have no need for economists. Let the thing do itself. Why do I need your advice? It is going to do it itself, right? But there is a third type of system, which is when human beings come in. Human beings want to improve the system. They don't want to just let the system do its own thing, right? So in wanting to improve the system, I interfere with the system. And here two problems come. Firstly is the inadequate understanding that any human being can have of the system around itself. But the system around me has created my mind. So how from inside can I understand the outside? How can the creation understand its creator? It's not philosophically or scientifically possible. So this hubris that we have, that I as a human being can control unruly nature, which was Francis Bacon's thesis at the invention of modern science in the 17th century. Francis Bacon famously said, with modern science, European science, man now has the ability to control unruly nature. All that we've been doing to try and control unruly nature, nature is striking back at us. Climate change, right? Disappearing natural resources. Please be humble in the face of something that has created you. Don't think that you're superior to it. So one is this hubris, and also, as I said, the lack of understanding of the whole system. So we have this third model of a system. The first is complex systems like machines, complex adaptive systems like natural systems, and complex self-intentionally adaptive systems, which are societies. Human societies are complex, self-intentionally adapted systems. We invent things like democracies. We invent things like the corporation and rules regarding corporations. The concept of a corporation does not exist in nature. The concept of an electoral democracy doesn't exist in the animal kingdom. These are human inventions for the sake of improving how we govern ourselves. How we govern ourselves. So it is a need to step back and rethink the design of our democratic systems and the design of the economic systems like corporations, business corporations, that we have invented. Maybe the time has come, it has really come, that we reinvent, rethink the concept of a corporation and rethink the shape of electoral democracies.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm most engaged with. That's what I'm most engaged with.
Yes. I just have one question. That is, how can one develop the collaborative conversation, particularly in the context of the concept of reach and reach in the digital age? Just a little and the digital.
I didn't get the bits part. Please say it again.
Readiness and reach. concept
Oh,
of
yes,
richness
yes.
and rich.
Yes, yes. You're a very good reader and listener. Yeah, because that's linked to democracy again.
Yes,
Ashutosh, we wanting to make the world better. We don't want to have wars in the world. So we invented the United Nations in 1945 to say this central body, the United Nations, is going to ensure that human rights will be respected all over the world and there will be no more wars. There will be no more wars. The United Nations is going to be it's going to be a democratic place where all countries are equally represented, and together they'll ensure that there are no wars hereafter. No one will
yes,
ever be tempted to drop a nuclear bomb on civilians, which the US had done at the conclusion of the previous war. So, the US is the only country in the world that has actually used a nuclear weapon against a civilian population. But we said, never again. Let not have anyone even be tempted to use a nuclear weapon against civilians or against even an army. Nuclear weapons shall be banned. But look, have we been able to achieve the stopping of wars? Not at all. We are fighting a war. The Europeans are fighting a war. I'm saying so. The Europeans are fighting a war with other Europeans in Ukraine, and they are worried about the use of nuclear weapons, and they're already saying, or maybe someone's already using depleted uranium. They have not been able to prevent wars. The same smart
right,
people who created the United Nations have not been able to prevent wars amongst themselves. Okay. Now, we need to have another system which is more democratic in listening to many voices, enabling many points of view to be heard, and then to be able to take a democratic decision in which power is not deciding who gets the last word. Unfortunately, in the United Nations, the Security Council has the last word. The Security Council has given a veto power to 4 members, and the United States is the one that exercises it most frequently, especially recently, regarding the war in Gaza and Palestine and also in Ukraine. So, power corrupts democracy. Power corrupts democracy. Um, um, how shall we then prevent weapons of mass destruction from being used? Weapons of mass destruction, WMD. I'm going to say we must propagate WMD, but not the same WMD, not nuclear proliferation. We must propagate ways of mass dialogue.
right,
Okay, that is in many places in the world. The people who
yeah,
locally have some disputes with each other, who locally have concerns about the shape of their economy or their environment, must listen to each other in dialogues. So, dialogues happening amongst people, all of whom are stakeholders of the local problem, not external people coming and telling them, this is how you should solve your problem because I'm telling you so. Get out of the picture. Leave it to
yeah,
people within their own countries, people within their own cities, people within their own states.
right,
But they must, the people within the city, within the state, within the country, must learn to listen to people not like themselves within their own country. And I'm
right,
afraid that in India right now, um, we are getting overly dependent on digital technologies and digital communication to solve our problems. They may solve problems of delivery of financial money into bank accounts. It's okay for improving efficiency of deliveries, but digital discussions do not improve listening. No one listens in a digital discussion. It's just
right,
hate bombs at each other. There's no one listening. So we need to shut off our devices and sit down together as human beings with my
yes,
neighbors, with my community, and say,
right.
what do we care about and what shall we do together to make the world better for all of us?
With you is and so many we are completely out of time now. So we will have to discuss here. Very enriching interacting with you. Uh, it is important we align with the interest. That's important. Also, is this the other side? And the meeting, more attention to the outcome. It's also an important takeaway. And culture shapes our mind also. So the problem that we have. And we are focusing very more of economy as well. And most important, and the last one that you're interested in is mass dialogue. So that's the final thing that we'll have as a takeaway here. So many thanks for joining us here to the now. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure interacting with you and enriching experience once again. Thanks a lot. And as well for giving me this opportunity to interact with them. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's been such a joy to have this conversation with you. Thank you. And I thank DHRU for bringing us together. Thank you.
Thank you so much.